of Philly, where the birds take flight. Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Tone and Marcus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Moore Street lights. Dashing like a running back, hitting every play. Blind guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Marcus always standing by. Bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Marcus always standing by. Bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry.
What's going on, good people? Good morning. Happy Sunday to you. Hope you're having a good week, or is the beginning of the week. It's Tone, it's Coach Marcus, the Eagles offseason show. You know what it is. We back and better than ever. Good morning, good folks. What's going on, Tone?
I'm doing well, man. I can't complain. You know, I always could, but who would listen and who would really care? So, you know, I mean, I'm just blessed, man. I'm always trying to put things in perspective, and you know, we live pretty decent lives, man. We get to come on here, talk sports, talk Eagles, man. Unapologetically, we created our own platforms. You know, we ain't waiting for nobody to give us an opportunity. You know what I mean? We don't need no crazy overhead, no crazy infrastructure to get the message out. I'm grateful, man. So I'm looking forward to having our conversations as always. You know what I mean? How about you, man? How's everything with the family?
Man, it's all good, man. Family's all good. Grand is good.
Solid.
Got up this morning and worked out. Got it. I went and played in the golf tournament a couple weeks ago. Caught the golf bug, you know, but I already know that I don't have time to go play 18 holes.
That wasn't what I thought you was going to say.
Dude, I went to the flea market this weekend. I found me 2 drivers for $10. So my weekly workout is I'm going to go to the golf range and just blast away. That's what I did this morning. I videotaped it. Man, I had a blast, man. Wore me out, though, because it started getting hot. But I went through a large bucket of balls, and I was like, man, I'm either getting way too old or this is a lot more than I expected, man. But I had worked up a good sweat, hitting the golf ball around. So I'm trying to find a way. I'm going to incorporate that into some of my regular content, just going out, hitting balls, stuff like that, just having a good time. I downloaded this app. I'm recording my golf swings, all of that type of stuff, man. You know, I'm gonna put the nerd twist to it some way, shape, or form, man. So had a good time, worked up a good sweat, came back, bought breakfast, got some Wawa sandwiches, and now we here, man. Now we talking about the birds, man. It's all good.
Sounds.
What did you think I was gonna say?
I ain't gonna lie, bro. I thought you was about to say, man, I pulled something. I gotta get. That's why I got my ass back in the gym.
Nah, man. Listen. I can honestly say, when I started doing YouTube and like being dedicated to it, like every day, it's easy to lose track of getting your ass outside and moving around.
Yes.
And then I looked up one day, I stepped on the scale and I was back up to like 259. And I said, oh, I'm a running back, not a defensive end, man. They moved me on the line with Nolan Smith and them dudes. I was like, that's not my spot. So I was like, I got to start moving around, get the weight down a little bit, you know, all the normal black man stuff, blood pressure, blood sugar, all that stuff. You got to keep your weight down to keep all of that stuff in check, man. So
yeah.
Birthday coming up in the next month.
Okay.
Me and my twin sister be double nickels. So we gotta keep everything in check, bro.
That's that BG year, that Brandon Graham year.
Yes, sir.
Double nickel.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's that NFC Championship year. You know, that double nickel. You feel me?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny you mentioned BG, man. Let's go ahead and start with him, man. I saw the comments he made about Deebo, and now they talk about he pouring gasoline on the rival, and I'm like, nah, not really.
What do you say? He looked fat?
He said I didn't catch the beginning of the conversation. The
Right.
tail end of it was Brandon Graham saying something to the effect of, "Yeah, he might want to lose a little bit more weight before he does something like that." So, because everybody talking about Deebo looking chunky over there in Washington.
I'm so glad he said something about it, because as fans, people think that, oh yeah, Eagles fans, we just talking our trash, right? I've seen the footage of him working out with the team or OTAs. I've seen him take his team photos. Yo, he on his. I got this weird feeling, bro. I think he's on his Kelvin Benjamin arc.
Explain.
Kelvin Benjamin, do you remember him, the wide receiver? He used to play with Cam Newton and the Panthers, and then he eventually ended up with the Buffalo Bills. And then
I remember the name, but I don't remember anything remarkable about it.
And then just fell into obscurity. So Kelvin Benjamin was a talented guy that people felt like, he could be one of them ones. He was one of those wide receivers that was like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", actually, just a big dude, athletic, talented, had a crazy rookie season. Came on the scene, 16 games, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns his rookie year in Carolina. He became one of them guys. And then just year after year, production started to dwindle. Health started to become a concern. Weight kept going up. And the guy just fell into obscurity. He spent 3 years in Carolina, 2 years in Buffalo, and he spent his final season in Kansas City in 2018. He hasn't been active since 2018, and he's a guy that just let his weight go and relied too much on pure talent than work ethic.
Right.
And again, I don't know him, but that's just what it looked like from a distance. And then you could even say he's on his. You could say he's on his cheeseburger Eddie arc. Eddie Lacy. Now, I don't think it's a secret, but Eddie Lacy came onto the scene like gangbusters. Eddie Lacy was one of the most talented running backs we've seen at that time, 2013, 2014. Eddie Lacy was super talented. He was dominant. Back-to-back seasons over 1,000 yards. Back-to-back seasons were over 1,400 yards from scrimmage. And then year 3, injuries, lack of production. Year 4, injuries, lack of production. Year 5, only lasted 5 years in the NFL. He was hot for 2 seasons and then disappeared. Eddie Lacy got fat, stopped taking care of himself. Another guy relying on talent. So I look at Deebo, and just to bring it full circle, Deebo was a guy who's, as we know, super talented. We've seen the things he's able to do with the football.
Absolutely.
He's done it to the Eagles. We've seen it. We've experienced it. But that was 2023 and back. He battled injury in 2024. He barely played in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah. I forgot about that, because rehab will slow you down.
Rehab will slow you down if you're not intentional about getting active. If
you eat a lot during rehab, bro.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. So, Deebo just hasn't been Deebo. He's been more like Red, if you know your Friday references. And Deebo, 2024, 806 yards from scrimmage. And I'm gonna make sure I do him justice, because I'm not just gonna bring up his receiving yards. I'm gonna bring up his rushing yards too. I'm gonna bring up his total yards, because that's the kind of weapon he is. I think that's fair to him, right?
Absolutely.
Just how I want people to include Jalen Hurts' rushing with his passing. I'm going to be fair to Deebo and include his rushing with his receiving.
Absolutely.
Now, in doing so, I will say I don't think he's a top 10 receiver at all. I never felt like he was, personally. That's just me.
You know what? I categorize him as the weapon.
Yeah, he's a weapon. He had that one.
Weapon. You can play him anywhere. You can play him at X, Y, Z, H, and tail.
Yeah, he's only had one season. He's only had one season going over 1,000 yards as a receiver, and it was a pretty good season. I mean, for over 1,400 yards, but that was 2021.
Yeah.
But he only has 2 seasons going over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. So you ask yourself, as talented as he is, how dominant has he really been? When you actually double back and look at the career, and then the eye test shows you what he's capable of. But he's entering 2025, and he's 29 years old. He'll be 30 January 15th, and I'm just looking at him. Just like BG said, I'm looking at the hips, like the hips busting through the jersey. I'm like, he looks slow. He look overweight. He don't look like that Deebo. He don't look like that dude that's gonna be able to make you miss like he used to. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. And granted, I've only seen a few clips. I've seen just about what everybody else did, but he looks like somebody who put on 15 to 20. He didn't build on 15 to 20.
Just put it on.
He put on, because his muscle doesn't look, when somebody builds up, 15, 20 pounds and they still shredded and ripped and they just look physically bigger, as opposed to somebody that's kind of soft and they just look bigger. You can tell the difference. And Deebo looks like he just put on a couple pounds just from sitting around eating, that sort of thing. Not like he wasn't working out, but to your point, it just looks like the optics is that he's not, tight with it like he was a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah.
So
he
and that's a fair criticism, but just like everything else, let's wait because we still got how long to?
I was about to say we in June.
Start?
Yeah, we in June. So
man, that's a lot of time to get that weight down. And somebody like him is probably not too difficult because when the one thing we used to do it when I played, and it's easier now because you got the technology and the food, nutrition, science, and all of that type of stuff these days that just didn't exist back in the day. So a lot more athletes can literally just flip the switch and say, okay, time to change this diet. Let's try to cut out all of this, cut all of that. And you can get results in less than a month. So when you have access to that type of technology and training and science, it's not too hard to really, hone it in. And it wouldn't surprise me if he comes back when camp legitimately starts, like 10 pounds lighter, looks a little bit more muscular because you got time to do that. So, and we got to remember, like at this level, these dudes know how to do that. You muted, bro.
And keep in mind, as Eagles fans, we talking a little, we talk our trash a little bit.
Talk
what I'm saying? So, like, look, I'm very aware he can definitely, get his weight together again. We got June, July, August. We're talking, we're having some fun with it. Plus, BG having some fun with it as well. But my whole point is BG seeing what we seen. Right. That's my main point. Not that he can't lose the weight, because he could lose the weight. We'll find out, right? We'll find out where Deebo is coming to the season, because he hasn't had that same pop that we're used to seeing. He hasn't. That's just a fact. It's been documented. It's been talked about.
And like my man Carlos said, he said I didn't hear the context, because remember I said I didn't hear the beginning part of the interview. I just heard exactly what BG said, and my man Carlos said it was kind of in jest. It wasn't, he was getting a good ribbon, but it wasn't nothing.
Again, I'm sure that's BG's personality. I'm sure.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. But the main point is that BG see what we see. That's the main. Right. That's the main thing, right? Even if it wasn't just, he joking on what we joking on. He's seeing what we see.
Facts.
He ain't blind. But nonetheless, though, shout out to Deebo. Shout out to his shout out to his Jenny Craig program.
You didn't give Jenny Craig, did you? You wrong for that.
Wait, you know what? My bad. Jenny Craig ain't been popping in a long time. I know Weight Watchers is in. Hey, listen, the Ozempic Warriors, they out there too. You know what I mean? So, hey,
the Ozempians.
You know what I mean?
Maybe you got a plug. Who knows? To Dallas Goedert, man.
Yeah, man. Dallas Goedert was at the tight end camp. With Kittle and Kelsey.
But he had I kept seeing the articles about him trying to explain his reason for the pay cut, and I thought that was very interesting because we talked about that. We've talked about that for a couple seasons now. I remember I was talking about that when Miles Sanders was going to leave, because not Miles Sanders, but Kenny Gainwell, and I remember I was asking the question: are they going to choose the bag or the culture? Because if you take the bag, you ain't winning. Where you going? And that's exactly what happened to Miles Sanders. And now you got Goedert on the flip side. We talked about the same thing with what's his name? Mekhi Becton. You know, was he going to take the bag or stick with the culture that changed his career? Dallas Goedert, he chose to stay home. He chose to stay with the culture. Could have made a little bit more money somewhere else, but he chose to stay in Philly, understanding what he had in front of him and what the opportunity may bring. You might have another opportunity to get another chip. Right. And he might be a situation where he's up for, 2 in 3 opportunities. You know what I mean? So you don't get that very often. So I was happy to see, to read that article and like, okay, he kind of stuck with it and he knows what he's looking for. It ain't that much extra money that you can make when you're at that level and you played as long as he played. He ain't gonna miss no meals. So, what do you want to play for? What do you want to end your legacy with?
Yeah, the Eagles already put a lot of money in his pocket. It's funny, he said, and I quote, he said, so when I got drafted a year after they won the Super Bowl, I was able to experience the fun parts of a Super Bowl the year after winning the Super Bowl. Then he also took it a step further and said, I got a lot of love for the city of Philadelphia, the ownership, all the way to the cooks in the building. I got a great relationship with all of them. So I figured for me, it was best to work out a deal so I could stay there and be with the people I find that are important and try to win another one. So he's a guy that understands where his bread is buttered.
Yes.
And on top of that, I'm sure he could have forced his way out of Philly with a trade. I'm sure he could have said, "Look, just cut me." Like I'm sure he could have forced their hand in a lot of different ways. But Dallas Goedert, he became a man in the city. He earned his stripes in the city. He became a Super Bowl champion in this city, a 2-time conference champion in this city. He may have had a Pro Bowls or the All Pros under his belt due to injury and missing some time, which disqualifies him. But Dallas Goedert, when he's healthy, when he got that ball in his hands, I can't think of too many tight ends that can do what he do. I just can't. There are plenty of talented tight ends. Don't get it twisted, but I think Dallas Goedert top 5 as far as the most violent. Most violent. You know what I mean? I think he's a top 10 tight end in this league, but top 5 most violent. He ain't 5, he ain't 4. You know what I mean? That man to put his hands on you.
Yeah, if he get you, what's the Street Fighter? Honda with the hands. Dallas will catch you one in the chest and knock you down.
Yo, so for him to for him to stay his reason and for staying in the city, and I think we already knew, he stayed again. He took less money. He took a pay cut. His actions. We always talk about actions speak louder than words, right? But your words can reaffirm your actions. So his actions indicated that he believed in where he was. He believed in Howie Roseman. He believed in Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. He believes that I'm gonna make my money regardless. Somehow, however that looks for him.
Right.
He believes he gonna get his money regardless. And then
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I see this situation. It's different, but the way I'm comparing it is, Dallas Goedert didn't have to do this.
Exactly.
Something needs to be said because he had every right to go get his money somewhere else.
If he can get it, for sure. He had every right.
And nobody would have hated him. He gave us good years. So there was no ill will with Dallas Goedert. If he would have left, everybody would have wished him well, without a doubt.
Yeah, but I also think he had a little bit more leverage than his leverage was interesting to me. Because on one hand, you say the injuries hurt his negotiating power, right? You're coming off of a season where you missed 10 games, right? Or 12, something like that. I think he missed like 10 games this past season. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But
I think it was 7.
One would argue that his negotiating power should be damaged or compromised with the injury history. But when you think about the Eagles' tight end room and what it's going to look like this year and who's on contract next year, if the Eagles want to maintain that dominant offense with that combination of A.J. Brown, Devonte Smith, Saquon, Jalen Hurts, and Dallas Goedert, it was in their best interest to work something out with him. They didn't draft the tight end.
Right.
They signed two. I don't want to say Make-A-Wish guys, but they signed two. They signed two third-string tight ends.
Yeah. They help them for a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, and those guys are 27, 28, I think, or 26, 27, the guys they brought in, but they didn't make large commitments to the tight end position.
Right.
In the draft or in free agency.
Right. And I think his leverage, I think that goes both ways.
Yeah.
Because here's the other thing. Dallas Goedert he's going into his what? Ninth year? Is that right?
Let me look right now. But go ahead. I'm looking.
He's been in Philly for a long time. And
he's entering year 8, by the way.
Okay, year 8. So he's been here for his whole career, right?
7 years, yeah. He got drafted with Devonte Maddox in 2018.
So a lot of people really don't take into consideration how much it means for somebody to just up and move.
Moving is annoying. I'll tell you right now. I moved from Philly to Texas.
Moving sucks.
You got to be,
and I'm not talking about the physical, the physical moving, the literal move with all your stuff in your house and your car and your clothes. That's stressful enough.
Right. But when you got resources, you pay people to pack it up, you pay people to move it.
It's still stressful.
No,
still
right.
Stressful.
Right.
My point is more like
this
is something that everybody in the chat can understand. Everybody at some point in time has started a new job where you don't know nobody. And you got to build those relationships every time. Mm-hmm. And some of those relationships aren't going to be as good as what you just came from. And that can affect your performance. And if you still want to stay on top of your game, in spite of your injuries and everybody knows your pluses and minuses. There's no secrets where you currently are now. If you go to a new place, you got to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So is it worth $11 million to stay where you are? I think so.
And on top of that, when you go to a new place, it's not just building new relationships. It's not just getting used to the city. It's not just getting your money. You have to convince a whole new coaching staff to believe in you.
Correct.
You have to convince a whole new coaching staff that you're worth your weight in gold. And Dallas Goedert is, regardless of the injuries, all his equity is here.
Correct.
So because of that, the Eagles look at him and say, hey, the injury's sure, but when he's out there, we know. And the film is out there too, I'm sure. But again, that doesn't matter. You go to a new situation, and we signed you because of that film, but you still got to prove yourself here. Dallas Goedert, I don't think he has to prove himself in Philly. I think he's very much proven in Philadelphia. Now it's all about legacy for him. Clearly, he's still making good money. But I think he understands that depending on how this season goes, could determine his, where he retires in terms of like just where he spends his final years. Again, he's entering year 8, but he's also 30 years old. He came into the league at 23 years old. Some guys come in at 21,
right,
22, whatever. But like he came in at 23, so he already was a little bit of a older rookie. So we'll see, man.
Thing is, to that point, what is Mekhi Becton going to look like this year? That, to me, that's going to be the thing I'm going to watch.
That's interesting as well. Him and Isaiah Rodgers. I'm curious about them.
Jeff Stoutland turned his career around.
Absolutely.
Turned his career around and got him on the right track. Will he be able to continue that growth without Stoutland around? What did he learn from here? And can he take it with him? Or did he need to stay here? So Mekhi Becton is somebody I'm going to be watching. I'm wishing the best for him.
Of course.
Because anybody that had to go through that bullshit in New York, I'm pulling for you, bro. Pulling for you. If you had any type or any piece of that Aaron Rodgers experience and you came out on the other side with a ring, I'm on your side, bro. But that will be interesting for me to see because he will be the litmus test of the bag versus the culture.
Mm.
So I know he has talent, but he had that same talent in New York. How come they couldn't get it out of him?
Yeah, and
what's the difference?
You bring up a good point. The talent versus the culture, and when you have a head coach that everybody buys into, that makes it that much easier to stay. And sometimes, to your Mekhi Becton point, I always felt like he would take a short deal in Philadelphia to continue to refine himself, and then he'd be able to get an even bigger bag. Like basically taking less now so he can get more. Because I personally think linemen get better as they get older. That's my opinion. And it's not like Becton is like 30, where he had to settle for like a 2 or 3 year deal. Like I feel like Becton could have took maybe a 2 year, like a short deal in Philly to double, triple, quadruple up after that. That's what I thought he would do. But also, again, guys' circumstances are different. You never know. Maybe he thinks to himself, "Hey man,
my man Function brings up a good point."
Yeah. Hey, listen, Jalen Carter exposes a lot of people, but
sir.
Becton, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he thought to himself, "Listen, man, I got an injury history. Let me get as much money as I can right now, and then we'll worry about 3 years from now when 3 years come." Because I think he signed a 3 year deal with Los Angeles, right?
I ain't mad at him.
Yeah, I ain't mad at it either. He got some good money, but again, I think everything we spoke about as it pertains to Dallas Goedert, and then Mekhi Becton, because that's the Stoutland connection, right? And even Lane Johnson, he was on national television speaking about Stoutland's impact and even Nick Sirianni's impact. And I think it goes understated how much of an impact Nick Sirianni has on his guys and how guys want to play for him. And if Nick Sirianni didn't have no juice, that team would not be able to turn around what happened in 2023. If Nick Sirianni had no juice, no equity with his team, 2023 would have been the end of it.
Yeah.
I think Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie brought him back, not just because they wanted to, or they felt like he could redeem himself. They paid attention to that locker room. They paid attention to that building. Sometimes guys have an energy or aura that they carry, and if it's toxic for the building or organization, we'll move on. Case in point, Chip Kelly, right? We've seen that happen before, but clearly Nick Sirianni's built up enough equity, enough not just cultural equity, with the building, but just human equity. Everything you hear about Nick Sirianni is that he's a great communicator. He's a guy that's very straightforward. You know how he feels when he feels it. You know exactly what he requires of you as a player, right? And he knows how to navigate that Howie Roseman sandbox.
I think after that, after the Tampa game in 23, I think Howie, Nick, and Jeffrey all sat down in a room and had some tough conversations.
I agree 100%.
And I think that Howie and Jeff came out of that a little bit more comfortable than they thought they would. Because we got to remember the whole situation with Matt Patricia, with
that was a mess.
With Shawn Desai.
That was a mess, bro.
It was a mess. But I'm going to put that on Howie. Because Howie's not, you ain't supposed to have a defensive coordinator and bring in another defensive coordinator.
I'm so glad you said that. The moment they hired Shawn Desai, right? And then the hires that preceded after that, it said everything about the confidence you had in your initial hire.
Right.
It said everything.
And I thought Shawn Desai was doing okay.
I felt like Shawn Desai was leveling out. He was figuring it out. The moment I thought to myself, okay, Shawn Desai, this defense is responding to Shawn Desai. Was that Rams game?
Same thing. I agree, 100%.
First half, things were a little weird. Matthew Stafford was kind of carving them a little bit. Offense, kept pace.
The second half,
defense shut them down, and offense, did the rest. So I thought that there were moments where Shawn Desai was able to cultivate some level of consistency from that defense.
I agree.
And having Matt Patricia in the building and relegating Shawn aside to a box, that was just, oh my God. Like, I ain't gonna lie, man. That I said to myself, yo, is Howie like, that's such a nasty move.
Because
that's such a messy move. Howie, are you don't regress on me now? Everything about the move was knee jerk.
And I think it all came out in that Seattle game.
It all came out in that Seattle game.
That Seattle game, to me, in my opinion, that Seattle game was on Patricia, not on Desai.
Why would you leave?
Why
would you leave James Bradbury?
Yeah,
one-on-one, single high.
Anyways.
He can't run. Why would you do that? And you let James Bradbury end up on their youngest, hottest receiver in Jackson and Jigba, one-on-one, single high, man to man.
Yeah.
He can't run.
Why?
So, you know.
Do you think he was hurt?
Who, Bradbury?
Yeah. Because his decline was not a decline. He fell off a cliff.
If he wasn't, the result was the result. He couldn't run. Yeah. He couldn't play. You know,
he was running the no-bill, bro. He was slow.
Yeah, it just wasn't good. I just felt like I felt like that whole organization was feeling the pressure last year. Coming off that Super Bowl loss, I felt like everybody was tight last year or in 2023. I felt like everybody was just tight. And they spoke about it.
Yeah.
They spoke about how, you know, they were playing not to lose. You know, they were winning games, but they were barely getting by. After a while, winning like that weighs on you. And yeah, winning cures all, but sometimes how you win matters. You know, in your season, you're going to have those like, hey, those 1-point victories, those field goal victories, right? You're going to have those games. Hey, we down by 10, but we made it happen, right? That was every week with them, like just down by 10, down by 13, down by 9. You know, like they were in the hole a lot going into halftime. Like it weighs on you after a while, and I just think, I just think the overall organization was feeling the pressure. Hence why we got a lot of those knee jerk decisions we got from up top.
Well, when you say it like that, just the way you described it, do you think that exactly what you said? Do you think that was carried over until the next year and was responsible for the whole thing with AJ Brown? I never thought about it like that until you said what you said.
You talking the Carolina Panthers moment?
Yes.
I do think it's connected.
Yeah.
Here's why.
Because they just getting by. Just getting by in 23. Then you get to 24. Was it a moment where AJ was like, we doing this shit again?
Well, leading up to that game, I don't think they were just getting by. I think they had some real tough opponents.
Yes.
Like the Ravens. That was a tough game.
But we agreed last year. They left a lot of food on the table.
Yeah. To your point, right? Like you said, was that connected? Was the 2023 result connected to what happened in 2024? I think it was, because I believe that, first of all, something like that happens in 2023, it doesn't just leave you.
Correct.
It's still resting in the back of your mind,
and it'll fuel you.
It can fuel you, or it can fuel you, or it can force you to get tight. And they started 2-2, and then they started ringing off wins. They started ringing them off in a row.
Right.
And that Carolina Panthers game was a real moment, because I think they all said to themselves, we've been to this point before and things bottomed out and didn't get better. We can't let that happen again. And I think that's why BG said what he said. No matter if I agree with his method or not, I think that's why BG said what he said. I think they were more intentional than ever to make sure they hashed out all their issues. Hence why that Steelers game went how it went. That Steelers game was so polished. They were so that's how a team responds when they've been through something before and they rectify previous issues. Right? It's not easy to overcome what they did. The NFL season is like a snowball. And once it gets rolling downhill, it's difficult to stop that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So
and it continues to get bigger.
Exactly. So I do think the 2024 little hiccup is connected to the 2023 result because those guys know how good they are and they believe that they're better than what happened in 2023. And the last thing they need is for it to happen again.
Yeah.
And Lane Johnson said, there's nothing that happens, good or bad, that we don't discuss either that day or that week.
Right.
And he says that's an environment Nick Sirianni has cultivated, that we talk about everything, regardless if it makes somebody uncomfortable. And that's why I think on the outside looking in, some people, more so specifically, Colin Kaepernick, he's a funny character, and I like Colin when Colin Kaepernick.
Kaepernick, yeah.
I like him when I like him when I like him, and there's times where I'm just like,
you said that perfectly, dude. You said I like him when I like him. I say that's perfect.
Yeah, I like him when I like him, and there's certain times where I just feel like
turn him off.
Get off your perch. You sound a little too out of touch. You sound like you sound like you've been living in some glass bubble a little bit. And here's why I said it. Because on more than one occasion last year, on many occasions last year, it was near impossible for him to give the Eagles credit straight up. Just clean credit. He always found a way to say, hey, listen, you got the wide receiver who's doing this to the quarterback. You got the head coach who's rowdy. You got this and that, and yet they still win. Philadelphia is one of those. You got a crazy city. You got a GM who's a rock star. You got an owner who always knows how to cut the check. You got a quarterback that's polarizing. You got Big Dom on the sidelines. All this kind of stuff with a headset. He says the Eagles are a team that should fail. But for some reason, they're so talented, they overcome it. They're so good, they overcome it.
He's definitely a flip-flop fanatic. That's for sure.
I'm talking about the whole situation with Jalen Carter, Clint Hurt, and Nick Sirianni on the sideline. And my whole perspective is like, dog.
Yeah, that was during the Saints game, wasn't it? I remember that.
I think so. I think so. It was the game where Nick Sirianni pressed Jalen Carter, and Clint was like, I got him, coach. I got him. Don't worry, I got him.
That was the Saints game.
And they used that as a way to slight Nick Sirianni to say,
he's losing control.
I like my coaches that have a control over the entire building. Like, there's not a position coach that can stop me from talking to one of my players. And my thing is, you clearly are out of touch. You're not plugged into the organization. You're just talking. Personally, there's more than one way to lead.
Absolutely.
And it's always frustrating when people act like there aren't different versions of leadership. It frustrates me when people act like that we didn't have a full gamut of personalities at the head coaching position throughout NFL history, right? There's, we've had wacky guys be some of the greatest coaches we've ever seen, right? And Nick Sirianni has cultivated a culture, has cultivated an environment where we talk about everything. No one's above reproach, and that's how we get through our issues. Nick Sirianni has empowered guys like Clint Hurt. He's empowered his position coaches, his coordinators, his guys like that. You know what I'm saying? And I just think Nick Sirianni is a guy that he has respect in that building.
He does.
You don't get as far as he has just by being carried or just by a good roster. Like, we've seen people fumble good rosters all the time.
That's content creation nonsense.
Yeah. So, again, you got guys out there who just don't understand how the sausage is made in certain cities, and they just want to smack on any sort of way they think things should be done, instead of just respecting their method, instead of just respecting what they've built and it works for them. Respect it. Give credit straight up. Say, hey, listen, man, you know what? I have my thoughts on this team, but they have a method here. It works for them. You got to respect it. They win football games. They're productive. Colin Kaepernick has a hard time giving credit to Nick Sirianni, has a hard time giving credit to Jalen Hurts. It's all because of this roster Howie Roseman put together.
Yeah, but he flip-flops for the ratings.
Ignoring the fact that, he may put the roster together, but these guys have to execute, and he knows that.
Well, the one thing that I've been making a conscious effort to do, and I'm learning this by the stuff I do with the WNBA now, keep it basketball, keep it on the field. If you keep it on the field, number one, everything is going to play itself out. And number two, it is very easy to see through the bullshit.
Yeah.
Because the one thing, regardless of sport, that I have figured out since I've been doing the YouTube thing is how many people don't watch the games, but got something to say. And just because you got something to say, you still got to do your homework. Nobody's doing homework anymore. So there's a lot of that stuff going around, and people don't really, they're not going to the next level to vet the information, or they just throwing out. People are speaking on what somebody said on Twitter rather than what actually happened in the game.
And look, last thing I want, look, and I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I don't want to. I'm not sitting here trying to act like, because although I have my opinions, I'm an adult at the same time. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to say Colin Kaepernick doesn't work hard. He works hard. Like, like it takes a lot to run a solo show 5 days a week for like 3 hours. It's not, and he's on West Coast time. So, and them shows air early. Like he's in the building probably 4 or 5 a.m. Like,
right.
And on production meetings, I'm sure he works hard. And I never want to disrespect the guy's work ethic, but it's clear he's not able to watch all the games. He's not. He's just not. And that is, and bringing it back to Nick Sirianni, it's like, he's so quick to give love to the Kyle Shanahan's, Sean McVays, because they're whiz kids and they're legacies, right?
Right.
And they're like these offensive dynamos, when it comes to play calling or whatever. And my thing is, with all due respect, Sean McVay in particular, he hasn't beaten Nick Sirianni. The guy that you love the most hasn't beaten the guy that you try to disrespect the most. Like, it's funny. Him and Sirianni, Kyle Shanahan, I don't know what their record is, but I know Sirianni's lost some, Shanahan's lost some. But Nick Sirianni's decorated. He's won games, a lot of games, Super Bowl champion. Yeah. Sean McVay's decorated, Super Bowl champion, so on and so forth. But like, when in the macro, when we zoom out from this thing, and we think about, and Sean McVay's been coaching, I think, a few years longer than Nick, right? I can't remember exactly how many years. Let me just double check this real quick. The point is, Sean McVay, when it's all said and done, when we look at the wins and losses, Sean McVay, he's 80-52 on his career. He has a 60% win-loss record, which is amazing, right? Nick Sirianni has been coaching for 5. He's entering his 5th season. McVay is entering his 9th season as the head coach. So there's a 4-year difference there. McVay got the job at 31. Nick got the job at 40. And Nick is still older than Shawn, which is crazy, right? Sean McVay's been coaching a long time and is a young dude.
Yeah, he got hired at what, 30?
31. So Sean McVay has done remarkable things in his league, multiple double-digit win seasons, 80-52 on his career, Super Bowl champion, 2-time NFC champion. He's decorated. He's won the division. But you think about Nick Sirianni, his start his career. Nick Sirianni is 48-20. 48-20 to McVay's 80-52, right?
With an inferior quarterback.
A 70% win percentage compared to a 60% win percentage, right? And look, the longer you're in the league, the more that's going to probably start to taper off a little bit. But my thing is, Nick Sirianni's resume deserves more respect, regardless. See,
absolutely.
Take away how you feel about the man. What's the results? See, people with Nick Sirianni and with Jalen Hurts, they focus too much on how they feel about the man.
Exactly.
What's the results?
They don't keep it on the field.
Keep it football. What's the results?
Don't keep it on the field.
I don't care what style of quarterback you prefer. What's the results? We all got our own flavor. We all got our favorite flavors of ice cream, right? What's your favorite? What's your favorite flavor of ice cream, bro? Real quick.
Cherry cordial.
I never even heard of that. But
cherry cordial is got the black cherry chunks.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, okay. I've seen that before. But okay, yeah. I don't know nothing about. I'm glad you've said that. I don't know nothing about cherry cordial. I don't know nothing about it. I never even had it before. But I'm not going to say cherry cordial is nasty because A, I never had it before. 2, clearly people like it. and clearly it works. It sells.
Right.
So I can't sit here and say, oh man, cherry cordial is like who thinks something stupid like that. Well, it sells, people like it. You know, you the fact that you said that, again, I don't know what that is, but my overall point is like respect the game. Like don't hate the player. Don't hate the player, man. Respect the game. Respect the results.
Keep it football, bro.
You know
And to my
saying?
man, thank you for the $5 super chat. And the answer to your question, in my opinion, is Sean McVay and the Rams. That's going to be our toughest opponent next year because they're trying to get some get back, and they already done started chirping with Jared Verse. Jared Verse.
Everybody trying to get. Everybody want they get. Everybody want they get back.
Yeah.
Green Bay want they get back. The Commanders want they get back. The Rams want they get back. Everybody want they shot at the dog. Everybody.
That's my answer, Kyle. That's my answer. Who you think so, Tone? Who you think the toughest our opponent for next year?
In my opinion?
Huh?
In my opinion, the toughest opponent is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, who are you playing against? You?
No, I'm serious. The toughest opponent is themselves. I really believe that, and I'm gonna give you a real answer, by the way. I'm just, but I firmly believe
Tone going zen on me.
I firmly believe that the Eagles are their toughest opponent.
I agree.
Like, this team knows no bounds. They're capable of many things. We've seen it. That schedule last year, they had some real opponents on it.
Absolutely.
Had to play the Ravens. And then a lot of this is another thing too, right? All of their playoff opponents, they played them 2 or more times that year.
Yeah.
They had to play Green Bay twice. They had to play the Rams twice.
Everybody got film on.
Had to play the Commanders 3 times.
Yeah.
It's not easy playing a team more than once in the season.
That's rough.
It's not easy doing that. So those teams knew the Eagles well. Couldn't stop them. They were inevitable. So, I think the Eagles are their toughest opponent. But to play ball with your question, if I'm looking at the Eagles schedule here, 2025 schedule, excuse me. Let's see who we got here. We got Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, Denver. Let's see. Actually, now I look at this schedule. I think so timing and circumstances matter to me because that week 17 Buffalo game could either be easy or really difficult.
Yeah.
But I think when I look at the schedule, I think Detroit takes a step back. I think Detroit takes a step back. You lost Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. You lost both your coordinators. Let's see how Darren Campbell fares there. And let's see where the direction of the offense goes. But I think Detroit takes a step back. I think Green Bay stays exactly where they are. I think Minnesota takes a step back. I think Denver takes a step forward. I think Tampa,
because I hate Shawn Payton.
I think Tampa Bay stays exactly where they are.
What about the Bears?
I think the Rams take a step forward. I think the Bears take a step forward. I think the Chargers, not because of the quarterback, but because of the head coach, I think the Chargers take a step forward. I may have to agree with you. I think the Rams are. I think the Rams probably are the Eagles' toughest and most interesting opponent on the schedule. It's something about those. Listen, I watched those Rams last year. They're good.
They got it. They got that man on defense.
They're good.
He's legit.
They're good.
Legit.
I just think with the Rams, their issue, in my humble opinion, has been these slow starts.
Yeah.
They've been struggling starting the season. They had back-to-back seasons going 10-7. Even the year they won the Super Bowl, they went 12-5, but I don't think that season was as smooth as they wanted it to be in terms of just like win-loss record. Actually, they had a few winning streaks. They had like 3-4 game winning streaks on our season. So they were really dominant that year. I'll take that back. But overall, though, to your original question, I think the Rams are probably the most interesting and probably the most difficult opponent. I think the Rams, they're talented. They got the quarterback. Here's the thing, though. I don't know. I got this weird feeling. Stafford takes a step back this year.
Really?
There's a weird feeling.
Who's he throwing to?
I could be no. He throwing some beautiful guys, right? Pause. But he throwing to Devonte Adams. He throwing to Puka Nakua.
Devonte Adams went out there. I forgot about that.
Yeah, no. Like Kyron Williams at running back. Tyler Higbee at tight end. They got talent. Don't get it twisted. But Matthew Stafford, he's another year older.
Can't move as well as he could.
He's talented. Don't get it wrong. I think Matthew Stafford doesn't get enough respect for how good he is. Personally, I think Matthew Stafford has been one of the most talented quarterbacks we've seen. In the past 25 years, I think he's fantastic.
He gets too much sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they look at. I think Matthew Stafford is what they want Jared Allen to be. Is like the way he throws the ball around, the way he does it and doesn't use his legs. That's what everybody's looking for. Matthew Stafford is the type of quarterback everybody's looking for. He's
important. See, I think the reason I like Matthew Stafford has there's something about being the man since the beginning.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford was the man since he put on cleats.
And he lived up to the expectation.
There's not many guys who can do that.
And that's the thing.
It's very difficult to be the man since you put on cleats all the way till you get to the league. Even when he was with Detroit and he weren't winning many games.
Yeah.
I don't think he was the reason he was losing a lot of them games, personally.
He had his moments.
I think no, he did. But I think that whole Detroit infrastructure was just hogwash. It wasn't like he created a terrible situation. He walked into a situation that was just already a mess.
Yeah.
And maybe they should have done more with Stafford and Megatron and so like sometimes you probably ask yourself, how is it possible to lose that many games that consistently?
There's two levels to it. Especially when it comes to quarterback.
Yeah.
Number one, is he as good as we think he is? And number two, if the answer to question number one is yes, that number two becomes, when is he going to win a championship?
In the first year he left.
When you get to that level of status, you're either going to be the Dan Marino, you're going to be one of those great quarterbacks to never win, or you overcome it and you finally get one in the books. You finally you get out of that Matt Ryan status. Matt Ryan threw for 8 million yards in his career, but never won a chip. He had it in his hands and they couldn't hold the lead. Tom Brady became Tom Brady that year, coming down from 4 touchdowns down. You know what I mean? So Trevor Lawrence, is he as good as we thought he was? Nope. And you go down the list, you name any quarterback. Are they as good as we thought they were? And you're going to get a lot more no's than yes. And then the ones that are yeses, can they take the team to the next level? Is Jordan Love as good as we think he is? I think he is. But can he get you to the next level?
I think Jordan Love is a tad overrated. I think he's a tad overrated, yo.
We'll see.
Like they're so quick. Like I
won't say overrated because he made the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
And to me, that's where it starts and ends. And then once you make the playoffs, then you go to the next tier. It's like, okay, what did you do in the playoffs? Because how good is Lamar Jackson? Lamar Jackson, everybody knows he's good. Multiple MVP, should have been the 3rd-time MVP. Let's stop playing. He should have been the MVP this year. But,
I agree with that personally.
But he can't. But he hasn't won the chip. He's done everything but. So he's still in that second tier and can't cross over that threshold yet. Matt Stafford's done it.
Here's my yes.
And to
yes.
your point, he languished in Detroit.
Yeah.
If he's throwing these balls to Puka Nacua and making things happen, and he couldn't do it with Megatron, arguably one of the best ever.
Yeah. Those first few years in Detroit were a little rough. He got hurt a couple times. Then he started ringing off consistent season after consistent season with good health. His first year in LA, he won the Super Bowl. So it answers the question right away. Like if he gets a coach and gets a team that's satisfactory, can he do it? And he did it. So shout out to him. But the Jordan Love.
How many years did he play for Dan Campbell?
Well, he never played for Dan Campbell.
That's the key.
He played for Caldwell before. He played for Jim Schwartz.
That's right. That's the key. Coaching matters.
Coaching matters.
If he'd had Dan Campbell and the way he was running his camp and the defense,
or Ben Johnson, however you want to,
it made it a bit different.
However you want to split the baby up, you know what I mean?
You're right.
So because we don't know who Dan Campbell is through turnover. Right. He's been growing with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn since he got there. We haven't seen Dan Campbell experience turnover yet, so we'll see that. But Matthew Stafford, one of them ones.
Is Matthew Stafford better than Jared Goff?
Yes. Yes.
But Jared Goff took Detroit to a Super Bowl. Or no, to an NFC Championship.
And Matthew Stafford took the Rams to the Super Bowl and won it.
Different team, better team. I'm speaking specifically
Jared Goff
about Detroit.
Listen, okay, to your point.
And its history.
Jared Goff has been blessed with a better version of Detroit than Matthew Stafford ever has been.
That's fair.
Ever has been. Not even close. Even with Megatron. It's not even close.
That is fair.
Not even.
But it's still Detroit.
Yes, it is still Detroit, but Detroit made it. Who's the new Detroit GM? I forget my man's name. Brad Holmes.
Yeah.
Detroit did a complete and utter reset.
180, man.
And they got it right with their hires. It starts with your hires, and they got it right from there. So that's done. And Brad Holmes did an amazing job building that roster. The bottom line is Jared Goff got a better version of Detroit than Matthew Stafford ever did.
I agree. That comp,
the truth.
That comp is very similar to the Eagles.
So that's why I think Matthew Stafford is better.
Oh, no, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I was just raising the argument just for the rebuttal of him being in Detroit. But I think the comp with Detroit and Philadelphia are very similar because look at the blowback that Detroit got when they hired Dan Campbell and he had his first press conference. And everybody was killing him, talking about biting kneecaps and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, but they wasn't killing him for looking like he was unqualified. They was killing him for looking like a psycho.
Exactly.
Whereas though Nick Sirianni was killed for looking like a deer in headlights. See, one guy was crucified for looking like a mountain lion in a room full of kittens, and one guy was crucified for looking like a kitten in a room full of mountain lions.
I think at the end of the day, it's all the same. I think they were looking for a reason to ridicule because it was Detroit. Same old Detroit. They're never going to win anything. He's talking about biting kneecaps as opposed to who is this dude planting flowers?
Criticism is criticism for sure. But also remember, Dan Campbell still had equity. He played in this league before.
He did.
There was equity. Dan Campbell. Say what you want because you're right. Like it's criticism. But where the criticism comes from and how it lands is a little different between Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni.
I don't think Dan
Campbell still gets more respect than Nick Sirianni today, and Nick Sirianni is Super Bowl champion.
Now that I agree with.
That's a fact.
But in the beginning, the equity, that to me, that stuff doesn't matter as much. And you know who destroyed that? What's the name? What's the coach that used to be out in San Francisco, play with the Bears? Linebacker.
Mike Singletary?
It's Mike Singletary. Mike Singletary destroyed that. Because Mike Singletary had all the respect, equity, he had history, He had experience. He had
Hall of
everything you wanted
Famer,
from a
play
head
like
coach.
he had it all.
And then he ended up pulling his pants down on national television.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
and I'm saying all of that to say that kind of stuff only goes so far. But the beautiful thing about it is,
He started winning.
Yeah, he
You know,
started winning. That's
you know,
the level playing field. Now, after you get to that point, that's when you can call bullshit on folks. Like, how come how you still ripping Nick Sirianni when he done been to 2 in 3 years and came out with a chip, and you still got a problem with him? You still mad that he jawed with fans? Get out of here. When you got a wonder, your wonder kid in another city couldn't get it done.
Mm-hmm.
With better players, better quarterback, everything that you think you should have.
They don't use the same. Listen, the Lions are super talented. Super talented.
Got bit by the injury bug.
But for some reason, they don't use the same language when describing Dan Campbell's success and Jared Goff's success when they talk about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Like,
no, they don't. Because nobody talks enough about Dan Campbell and his going for it on 4th downs and how it bit him in the butt.
On more than one occasion. And it's just
they just want to concentrate on him being a gunslinger.
That's why I think it's always fascinating, like who we you know what? Everyone picks their favorites. And Nick Sirianni is the guy. People had their opinions about him, and they had their claws sunken so deep in their expectations of him and their thoughts of him that when he achieves success and he's consistently been successful, they don't want to take their claws out. They don't want to accept the fact that they got to continue to find ways to discredit him. They got to continue to find ways to say, well, I mean, he's not this guy though.
He's not that.
Every year is he won how many games? Well, he's not him though. Okay. He's a Super Bowl champion. Oh, okay. Well, he doesn't call plays though. Like it's
always something.
Some of our greatest coaches haven't called plays. Jimmy Johnson never called a play in his life. Let me not say his life, but you know what I mean. Jimmy Johnson didn't call plays in Miami. He didn't call plays in Dallas.
Dude, Barry Switzer.
Like, it's they move the goalposts every single time. And it's so, as an adult, you're so certain things just don't get by you. Sometimes I'm like, yo, y'all realize y'all on TV, y'all are recorded. We remember all the things y'all say, and y'all still proceed to directly contradict what you said, or say something that completely debunks what you said a week earlier, or whatever it is. Like, these guys are just talking. And I'm like, dang, man, at some point you gotta commit to something and not be moved off something. I respect people who, like Dan Orlovsky. I think we talked about this. Dan was like, hey, I gotta change how I evaluate, how I look at Jalen Hurts. Deserves all the respect in the world. He shut me all the way up. Like, I respect people who just say, hey, you got me. Yeah. But no, some people gotta dig their claws. And that's why I look at Nick Sirianni as a guy like, you know what? And we talk about it all the time. At the end of the day, it's just noise. And Nick Sirianni is a guy that no matter what people want to say about him, no matter what they think about him, no matter how you think he got successful, at the end of the day, he got to execute. He got to get those guys to believe in the goal, believe in the message. He's talking to grown men every single day in these meetings. And at any point, they could call bullshit. They could call it. You've been in these meetings, big dog. You played. You played in the NFL, the World League. You played in the Canadian Football League. You've been in so many football meetings on the college level, high school level. You've been in so many meetings with so many different coaches. It doesn't take long for a player to nudge you, like, hey, yo, you with this fucking guy. Like, who is this guy? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't take long. So I'll look at it from the perspective of these guys can feel how they want to feel about Nick Sirianni all they want. At the end of the day, players call BS when they see it. And I'm sorry, the Eagles organization, these players, he not bullshitting with them, and they see it. Ain't no BS with him. They see it. They respect it. Whatever it is he does, it works. He's a leader. The Eagles would not win if Nick Sirianni was a liability. They would not be able to win if he was a liability. It don't work. It doesn't work.
Saquon Barkley said it. Saquon Barkley said it. He had preconceived notions to what Nick Sirianni was until he got here.
Rightfully so. I mean, when you get your ass whooped in the playoffs and the head coach and the camera looking at you like this,
exactly.
And
you think it's one thing until you get here.
Yeah. He said he was ready not to like him. Or
there you go.
Or let me not say ready because you signed the contract. Let me not say ready not to like him, but what he thought was. You know what I mean?
Right.
And sometimes look, how you parent is not up for everybody else to understand how you parent. It's not our business. It's not my job to understand how you parent. Hey, are your kids successful? Or have they built strong family foundations? Did they go to school? Are they accomplished? Are they good people? Are they God-fearing? Whatever it is you believe, like, it's not up for me to understand how you parent. But when I see them kids, I see the results.
You see the results. There you go.
You know what I'm saying? I may not agree. I may not agree with everything. I may not agree with every decision you make as a parent just from a distance. But guess what? I see the results. Them kids smart. Them kids don't get in trouble. They don't need P's and Q's. You know what I'm saying? They respect their elders.
Right.
So just respect it. Instead of trying to find reasons why it shouldn't work, respect why it does.
Exactly. And nobody wants to do that because ultimately, number one, everybody wants to be right. And number two, everybody will jump at the opportunity to tell you you are wrong. I remember doing, I don't know, this was months ago, 6-7 months ago. I put out a video and I spelled something wrong. And it was amazing how many comments I got to tell me that I did something wrong. I spelled something wrong. Like, how come I didn't get this type of heat when I just produced regular videos and everything was the way it should be? Nobody had anything to say. But the minute that you make a mistake, the minute you are wrong about something, everybody wants to jump out the woodwork to tell you you are wrong. And when they get that attitude, they don't want to come off of it. So they would rather come up with excuses as to why you are successful, as opposed to just saying, well, y'all was the better team. And the better team has the better coach. And the better coach has the better GM.
All those things work in concert. It has to fit. It has to fit.
If you have a failure at any level, it's a failure.
Right. So, Jalen Hurts being the way he is works with Nick Sirianni the way he is.
Absolutely.
And it works with the way Howie Roseman is, right? People look at Jalen Hurts and they look at Nick Sirianni and they see two different personalities. Very different personalities. And I understand from a distance, you see two guys that probably shouldn't work. But because of who they are, how they carry themselves, there's a push and pull that happens. And they're able to cultivate something successful. When everybody in the building is too much alike, how can you see the forest from the trees?
Exactly.
You got to have some resistance. You got to have some friction to stimulate that kinetic energy between people. You know what I'm saying? Me and my wife are very different.
Likes repel.
Yes. Yes.
Opposites attract. Can't argue with physics.
There's a positive and negative. Like the magnets, it you know, me and my wife are very different. Very different. Very different to the point where sometimes we'd be like, how is this working? But it works because we are different.
Because you're different.
And we pull different things out of each other that maybe we didn't realize we needed to be pulled out of. You know what I'm saying? So
your weakness is her strength, and vice versa.
And so on and so forth. And even when it's uncomfortable, I understand that I need her strength in that moment.
Facts.
Even when it's uncomfortable for me, I need her strength in that moment. I need her to be who she is because I know who I am, and so on and so forth. So chemistry, exactly, Tiffany. It's called chemistry. You can't put the same concoction in this. You can't put the same concoction in the on the Bunsen burner and think you're going to see something alchemic happen or see something spectacular happen. You got to mix some things, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little sugar, a little bit of spice, and everything nice. You know what I mean?
You get that with the
Powerful
girls. I get you.
You know what I mean? You gotta have that balance of, whatever it is you're throwing in there. Everybody can't be the same. I think Nick Sirianni, and also when you hire people, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I'll close it with this. When you hire people, you're not just hiring them to do the job. You're hiring them also based on whether or not they can exist where the job needs to be done.
Facts.
There are people who I'm sure who are capable of doing a lot. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are capable of doing the landscape design on your front yard, right? But here's the problem. You want to find the guy who understands the soil in this area so he can determine based off of what flowers he wants to use and what flowers or what shrubberies or what hedges he should use based off the soil, based off this climate, because he's familiar with it. He understands it. It's something that he's used to, right? You don't want to just bring any designer in that just wants to do what he wants to do and not taking into account the lay of the land of where he is. Nick Sirianni, say what you want about him, he understands the Philly culture, that gravitas, that energy, that brashness, that confidence, that overzealousness that's required, right? And that shit talking mentality. He understands it. He's a former athlete. He didn't play on the NFL level, but he played in the college level. Former wide receiver. He's a competitive dude. He understands. He hates losing. He understands it. So when he is jaw jacking with the fans or whatever, or being like he was in 2022 and the camera, stunting and all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, I like that shit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
He was like that
Philly.
in college.
I like that.
He was like that in college.
He like that in college.
He went to Mount Union where I think when he was playing when he was a receiver at Mount Union, I think they ended up winning 2 or 3 national championships in his college career. So he comes from a winning program.
Ain't that in Ohio?
Yeah. He's Ohio football.
That's why you like him. That's why you like him.
Absolutely, man. He understands it. And my thing is, you don't deal with people, you deal with personality. And everybody can't do that. You got to deal with a melting pot of different personalities, and you got to understand how to navigate each differently. And a lot of people cannot do that to save their life. Nick Sirianni can. He's one of those people that can absorb whatever's coming his way, and he knows how to match your energy, shift, and get your energy, his energy, both going in the same direction. That's the key. You can have your cliques in locker room. Every locker room has them.
That's normal.
Everybody don't want to go drink. Everybody don't want to go to the strip club.
Everybody ain't got families.
Don't want to go out.
Everybody ain't got families.
Right. So you got different sections, and so the likes hang with likes. But when everybody comes in that locker room, when you come into that locker room, regardless of what you were doing outside of it, when you get in that locker room, everybody must be facing in the same direction. And the guy that's leading the ship, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, have been masterful at getting everybody on the squad going in the same direction. That's the most important thing.
Hurts has the temperament required to play in Philadelphia, and Nick Sirianni has, how do you say, he has the edge or the swagger to coach in Philadelphia. Like they both, what makes them great comes from 2 different places. But
yes, but they end in the same place.
But it's the reason why it works in the same place.
Yeah.
Because it's the reason Carson Wentz didn't last in Philadelphia, not just because he was getting hurt it's the reason why he didn't last. He didn't have this. Doug Peterson, regardless of what happened with Howie, he had the temperament to coach in Philadelphia.
Listen, I wasn't happy when they fired Doug.
No, I don't think anybody was. I wasn't personally. I wasn't at all. I thought they would eventually run it. I thought they would eventually hash things out. But when one guy had his feet dug in the sand about what he wanted to do, and vice versa, and that goes back to that meeting with Nick Sirianni after the 2023 season. They had a
Well,
real
the bud.
conversation, and they said, Nick, how do we move forward from here? I'm sure that was one of the questions, and I'm sure they already had their thoughts, but they wanted, how do we move forward from here? What's your assessment? And I'm sure they had a very blunt conversation.
I got a good question for you.
Okay.
Do we win the Super Bowl if Dougie P stays?
If everything else is the same? Because life doesn't really work that way. Like, it's not.
And I'm not looking at it that way, because in my opinion, the answer is no, because if Doug stays, we never get Saquon. I just don't think it doesn't happen because, and here's the weird part.
Why particularly that? Why particularly Saquon? Because there's a lot of things that probably wouldn't happen, but why particularly that?
This is my hypothetical. This is my logic. If Doug stays, Jalen Hurts is a much better passer than he is right now.
Okay.
That's my opinion. He's a better passer, and his yards per game is much better than it exists right now.
Okay.
So we never get to the point where we think we need Saquon. We're doing just enough with Miles and Kenny and whatever we would have ended up with if they would have left. So what I'm saying is, I think Doug Peterson, being a former quarterback, and Doug Peterson is a pretty good quarterbacks coach. Look what he did with Donovan McNabb.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Jalen Hurts is a much better passer at this point in his career because of Doug Peterson. So it's not so much reliance on the RPOs and getting him the ball in space and him doing his thing. I think AJ Brown is still here. Maybe we have Smitty, maybe we don't. But I think Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball at a better clip, at a higher clip than he does right now. Right now, he does it when he has to do it, but we know he can do it.
Mm-hmm. But
the bread and butter is Saquon, RPO, and a slant across the middle from AJ Brown. Every now and then we get the dagger. We know what Devonte can do. But again, is Devonte here if Doug Peterson never leaves? I don't know. So I look at that differently, and I just think everything happens for a reason.
And that's what I was about to say to you. I think ultimately, we don't get to this point, and we don't get to this point in this conversation without everything that happened prior to happening the way it was, you know?
Right. If Doug Peterson is here, I honestly believe Jalen Hurts would have had 2 4,000+ yard seasons.
He would have had he would have had a 4,000+ yard season if he didn't get hurt in what was that, 2022?
He would have had it in 22. In 23, if you remember, the last 4 games of the year, he only had to average like 150 yards a game or something like that for him to go over 4,000.
Yeah.
And then that's when the bottom fell out.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that the dominoes would have fallen differently. The needs we had that got us Saquon would not have existed if Doug P stays.
Yeah. And look, I always got love for Dougie P, man.
I do too.
I got love for Dougie P. I ain't got nothing bad to say about him.
I do too.
I ain't got nothing bad to say about him at all.
If Doug P is here, do we still get Zach Bond? Do we ever get Cooper or Quinyon?
Listen, I think Doug and Howie's relationship was always a bit tumultuous. I just think they did a good job navigating it. And then when things kind of
did, but I guess my point is, based on the successes and failures you have in a season, determines what Howie's looking at in the draft.
Yeah, I just
it's interesting, man. It's a very weird hypothetical.
It is interesting because so much has
basically
happened.
What I'm saying is if Jalen was a better passer, we might not be in the Super Bowl.
Listen, I'm a firm believer. Look, bro. Like I've always felt like the run game is more important than what these prognosticators want to say, man.
You already know how I feel, bro.
The proof was in the pudding this year. If you look at the best teams in the league this year or 2024, if you look at the best teams in front of 2024 season, look at the rushing attempts versus the pass attempts.
Yeah.
Look at it. You know, a lot of people like to say, "Oh man, the Eagles had the worst passing offense based off of attempts and yards, not based off of efficiency.
Nope.
They base it off of attempts,
the flash,
and yards.
They base it off the highlights.
It's fascinating to me.
They base it off the highlights.
They don't talk
the
about
ball for 60 yards in the air.
They don't talk about yards per attempt. They don't talk about touchdown intercept. They don't talk about touchdown interception ratio.
Well, no. They talk about it, but they only talk about it if it's Stafford, if it's Allen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But specifically the Eagles, specifically Jalen Hurts, right? The passing game. The Eagles' passing game, yeah, you know, they weren't that high up in terms of pass attempts per game, right? The Eagles were dead last in the league in pass attempts per game. Dead last with 25 attempts per game, 25.7 attempts per game, right? That's 32nd in the league. And they use that as a way to qualify their opinion, indicated that the Eagles had a lackluster pass offense. They used attempts and they used yards in particular, like I said.
Yeah.
You look at the pass attempts. Eagles were 32nd in the league with 25.7 with 25 attempts a game. Can you take a guess who was 31?
Who's?
The Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens were ranked 31st in the league in pass attempts with 27 attempts per game. Green Bay was 30th with 28 attempts. Pittsburgh.
Green Bay was 30th?
Green Bay was 30th with 28 attempts.
Interesting.
But they don't, and also what doesn't get talked about is Green Bay quite literally started taking the ball out of Jordan Love's hands on the back end of the season. This is why I'm not the biggest Jordan Love guy, because when I watch him play, he throws off his back foot way too much.
Yeah.
He throws off his back foot way too much. And when there's nothing there, he just says, fuck it. Like, so, and also, what's the real difference between 25 attempts and 27 attempts?
Not much.
25 attempts, 28 attempts. What's the real difference between that, really?
You know what the difference is?
Buffalo was ranked 28th with 30 attempts. The Chargers were ranked 27th with 30 attempts. So when you think about those teams who ran more than they passed, because let me make sure I got this right here. As far as rush attempts per game, give me 1 second here. I got it right here. As far as rush attempts per game, the Philly was ranked first. Guess who was second? Baltimore. Baltimore was second. Washington was third. Detroit was fourth. Green Bay was fifth. Pittsburgh sixth. Buffalo seventh. A lot of these teams, the top 7 teams in rush attempts were in the playoffs.
Yes.
And the
Imagine
the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the bottom 6 teams in pass attempts were in the playoffs.
In the playoffs.
But they only speak on the Eagles' pass attempts per game. They don't speak about Baltimore's.
Nah.
Because
they don't even speak on when Jared Allen wins games the same exact way as Jalen Hurts does.
You mean Josh Allen?
Josh Allen, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. What I say, Jared Allen?
You said that twice. The first time you said it, I didn't peep it at first.
Josh Allen.
Because I thought you were talking about somebody else.
Nah, Josh
but then I'm like, okay, so Josh Allen nonetheless. So, like, you know, people find these ways. And you mentioned Jalen Hurts probably would have had more passing yards than the Doug. It's entirely plausible. But the running game is so integral to this sport. We gotta stop acting like because a team runs more than they pass, the quarterback is ineffective. Because I've been watching a lot of
that's ESPN's fault, man.
I've been watching a lot of the Eagles like highlights and a lot of the Eagles like perfect example. I was watching Devonte Smith's highlights recently and AJ Brown's and Jalen Hurts. I'm like, and you know what they say? They say because the Eagles' pass attempts are low, or the Eagles are the last in the league in pass attempts, that's an indicator that they don't trust Jalen Hurts.
No.
That's a false equivalency. That's not apples to apples.
Correct.
Because not trusting a quarterback means that you don't allow him to throw the ball 10 or more yards down the field. That's not trusting the quarterback. Jalen Hurts was bombs over Baghdad all year long, throwing it down the field. As a matter of fact, let me pull the stat up real quick. Passing offense. Let me just look up yards per attempt.
Yeah. The Philadelphia Eagles averaged 7.9 yards per attempt. That is ranked 7th in the NFL. And what was our rushing average?
Yards per attempt?
Yeah. Yards per carry.
Yards per carry. Here it is. Yards per rush attempt. The Eagles were ranked 4th in the league in 5 rushing yards per attempt.
What?
Listen to this.
5 yards a carry?
Listen to this, though. Baltimore was ranked 1st in the league with 5.8 rushing yards per attempt. Baltimore was ranked 1st in the league with 8.8 pass yards per attempt, right? So, but here's my point, right? Both Baltimore and the Eagles were ranked in the top 10 in pass yards per attempt and rushing yards per attempt. And they were also the bottom two teams in rushing yards. In pass attempts.
Yeah.
So when you really dig into the numbers and you really dig into the rankings and the production, you say to yourself, why do we keep criticizing the Eagles and Jalen Hurts when, like, the team we love so much, the quarterback we laud over, they're doing it the same way.
Like they doing something wrong.
They doing it the same way. And
so they want to move the goalposts.
Yeah, again, Baltimore and as effective as Baltimore's offense was, the season still ended how it ended for
them. Just so everybody knows, when it comes to rushing the ball, the rule is you need to get 3 yards per carry. Because technically that means you get 4 downs. So 3 yards times 4 downs, that's the first down. So that's the logic behind it. 3 yards per carry. So if you in 4 yards a carry, that's good territory. If you 5 yards a carry, that is spectacular. And if you 6 yards a carry, like yours truly was in college, that's Hall of Fame level. I'm not saying I'm
exactly. Oh man, no,
6.7 yards a carry. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
No, I feel you, man. So it's just like, and this will be my last point.
Yep.
Because I got to get out of here soon. So this will be my last point. Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, they're two of the most polarizing figures in the NFL right now.
Correct.
And
for the wrong reasons.
People have a hard time simply just putting their hands up and saying, you know what? We was wrong about this duo. We was wrong about that. Them boys good.
That boy good.
We was wrong about this duo.
I know he's not 6'4", but he's good.
They thought this duo was doomed. Oh, their relationship is sour. They can never make it work. Shows how much you know. Shows how much you know. You don't get to the Super Bowl. You don't win. You don't get to that point just because your roster is good. If the quarterback and the head coach are at odds consistently, it permeates to the rest of the roster. It won't work.
People are not talking enough about Jalen Hurts getting back.
Getting back. When history was not on his side, he got back to that moment. And not only did he win, he showed you what
the first one, right? Ain't that what they said? He was lucky to get to the first one.
Marcus, not only did he get back, not only did he win the game, he showed you what it should have looked like in the first place.
He destroyed the best in the business. He destroyed the best quarterback. Our defense destroyed the best quarterback in the game because Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the game. and our offense destroyed one of the best defensive coordinators in the game.
Facts.
Bar none.
Because Kansas City.
And we lost the first one on a questionable call.
Kansas City had a top 10 defense.
Yes.
So, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that, man. It's been a hell of a show, man. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channels, man. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Coach Markus from Pro Fan Talk. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Chalk It Up Sports. Where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge to the game. You guys are always phenomenal. Make sure you guys remain active, man. We appreciate y'all chilling with us on a Sunday. Y'all know how me and Marcus get, man. We just start rolling, and all of a sudden, we've been going for all of a sudden this
an hour and a half.
To 12:41 his time, 11:41 my time, man. Been doing this for an hour and a half. So we appreciate y'all, man. So make sure you guys stay locked in. Keep doing your thing, man. Keep showing love. Keep locking on the content. I got more reactions coming out this week, you guys. So make sure you guys keep running those up. I appreciate the love, man.
It's all good, man. Y'all have a good week. Got some WNBA action coming up today, but definitely going to have some more Eagles content this week as I begin to make the split and keep everything here Eagles and everything basketball on my new channel. I'm starting to move. We was talking about moving earlier. I will probably have it done sometime at the end of July. And by then, training camp will be started.
Yep.
We'll be right around the corner from August. So looking forward to it, man. A lot of good stuff, man. And as usual, the birds are on everybody's minds. And guess what? We're going to keep it that way as we get ready to reload and run it back, bro.
Yes, sir. Hey, Marcus, you know what I'm about to say, man.
I know.
Play that song, big dog.
Go Birds.
In the city of Philly, where the birds take flight, Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Colin Markus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Moore Street lights, dashing like a running back, hitting every play. Blind guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. I like an eagle soaring in the sky. Colin Markus always standing by, bringing the heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Colin Markus always standing by, bringing the heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle